I think I still have imposter syndrome.
There is collaboration possibility. There's contribution, communication. So many different parts are part of this open source itself.
Developers as bloggers, also known as DAB. So I just
Hey everyone, I am Sanskar and welcome back to another episode of the Developers Cafe podcast. In this episode, I'm in conversation with Ankita Tripathi and Vanshika Srivastava. If you're a beginner in tech and want to find a place in open source and in the tech communities, make sure to watch this episode completely. Before we begin, make sure to press like, share, and subscribe. And as always, enjoy this one. Hello Ankita, hello Vanshika. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hi Sanskar, doing good. Finally, good to see you all out of Twitter. I'm really happy to about one thing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's
Awesome.
going good.
Awesome. So, just for starting, can you please introduce yourself to the audience in a short, brief intro?
So, hi folks, good to be here. And I'm Vanshika Ankita. I'm a community advocate at Uber, and I'm also involved with other open source projects and helping and building scalability communities. And that's pretty much about me.
Hi, I'm Ankita. I'm currently leading or building Dev Library product at Google, and I have also been a part of a lot of open source projects, uh, be it the Good Dogs project, and recently I was also selected as the Season of Dogs tech writer for Metanorma project, which is also an open source project last year. So yeah, that's been a small journey about me.
Perfect. So, Vanshika, you're from a commerce background, and Ankita, you also do tech writing. So, that's not, what coding is all about. So, I want to ask you, have you ever felt imposter syndrome?
I think I still have imposter syndrome every now and then. Specifically, I'll tell you one small instance. Like nowadays, if you go on Twitter and you see that the young generation that has been coming up, and I talk about this a lot on Twitter channels as well, that they are just so much ahead of their time. They are super active. They're contributing so much, building projects. I have seen open source projects built by students who are just like 18, 19, and it just makes me overwhelmed at times. Like I'm happy, but it's just that suddenly that imposter syndrome kicks you in, that you are not maybe up to the mark. You are just not competing with the rest of the people who are just doing so much more. But then also I've heard stories, especially your recent episode was with Santosh, and I remember Santosh talking about it, that he started his open source contribution post the age of 30. And these small instances, these small stories just build so much more encouragement for the people like us, that when once that imposter syndrome kicks in, when you see that you're not doing enough or not doing much, just go through these stories, which you are doing a good job by the way in, and just recall these stories that people have also started late in their career but are extremely successful with whatever they are doing. So because there is no limit to what we want our expectations to be, there is just no limit to that. So yeah, I think that's what I do.
I actually agree to what you said. So for me, I'm like still in my college and still doing a lot of stuff. So for me, this is how it is. Like imposter syndrome is just like a part of your process. Every day you're doing something, and you eventually realize that okay, maybe I'm not doing it right, or maybe I just need to check up on few things. And I think that's a good way of looking at how far you have come, because eventually you start comparing yourself. If you're comparing yourself with yourself only, like what previously you have done, then that's a good sign of an imposter syndrome, and you can come over it. But then if you start comparing yourself with others, then I think you would face problems, and that's where we actually need to break the ice and come out of it and be like, okay, everyone have their own differences, everyone have their own stories, right? And you have another path, I have another path, so let's just go about it. Yeah, like just let them be themselves, and you go on to your stuff, right? So that's how it's supposed to be for me, at least. And sometimes when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I think also you get burnt out in this kind of process because you're trying to put a lot of efforts into what you're doing so that you can do a lot more better than that, right? So avoid the burnout which happens within the imposter syndrome. That's one thing that I would definitely say, because I have gone through that, and it's horrible. And the fact that Ankita was mentioning, right, that a lot of folks who are very into their young ages, they get into these kind of lines. It gets very difficult for them because coming generation is much more advanced than what we are doing today. So, yeah.
Hmm. So, Ankita and Vanshika, when you were starting off, did you face some sort of challenges in contributing to open source, in becoming part of these tech communities? Why I'm asking this is because some folks may feel alone, when they can't share their issues, their concerns. But when they listen to us talking about these issues, they relate with themselves, and then they can, feel confident about this.
So I typically don't come from a I don't come from a technical background, and I think now open source is becoming super diverse. We have people from different backgrounds, chemical engineering, and let's talk about electrical engineering, all those sort of things. But still, people have those doubts, and that's fine. If you feel challenging in the space of open source, that is very much fine, because there will be something out for you, and you probably need to explore that, and that is where you're facing that challenge. So personally, I felt this thing that when you begin in open source journey, people start saying that you have to contribute to open source projects, and the projects that they tell you is super huge. So the proximity of you getting your PR merged, right, is a little low, because you're just starting off your core contribution. So one thing I would say is that if you are very new to open source, but you're probably from not that background, that's completely fine. You can start off contributing from a different sort of manner, which is like contributing to documentation, or probably helping out the community. That is one way that I did. I tried understanding the concept of the project and then helping out the people, and then eventually went on with the contribution part. So that is how you can, bring in the community as a part of a solution, that challenge that you're facing, because you're not from that background, or you're probably very new to the project. And also, I think, for the starting process, let's not pick the big open source projects, right? Because they have certain, I would say, rules and regulations, and the way people are contributing to it. So I think if we can find out the projects which have some certain rules, but then yet they are small, right? We can probably contribute to them, and then eventually learn and understand how the open source projects actually work. Because these are also sort of planning on to become an organization, in the future. That's how open source projects are evolving. So that's my take on that.
I totally agree with Vanchika here. For me, I think my journey started with Google Season of Docs. That was the first time I got introduced to what is open source, and that this was back in 2019, I guess, when I was first introduced to the program as well. And it's very, I should say, it's very weird that it was so late in my career that I got introduced to open source, and I kept blaming why I didn't do this earlier. So the first thing I did when I was introduced to the program as well was I didn't just started as, like, I didn't want to contribute to a organization when I don't have experience. So what I did was I just opted for volunteering. So there, with Google Season of Docs, this is one of the good things that there is a list of open source organizations who are participating in that program. So you can just look at their description, what they are doing, and if you feel connected with one of those organizations, you can just reach out to them and say that, I'm interested in this, but I just want to volunteer. Can I just be a part of it? And they are very open. By the way, they are just so welcoming. All these organizations are extremely welcoming. So you can just connect with them with their platform, with their communication platform. And so I remember I was a part of the Good Docs project as my first open source project, and they create templates for anything and everything. So if you want to somehow create an API documentation and you just don't know where to start, you have that blank page anxiety, right? When you just see a blank page and you don't know how to start with it. So they were trying to overcome that blank page anxiety by creating templates of every sort, so that whenever anyone wants to create documentation, they have a first-hand template of sections built for them. So I started contributing with them, and that's how I got introduced to Glossary Project, where I was introduced to a lot of scientists globally. I was working with them, getting to know their work, and then after 1 year of volunteering, I second last year I just opted for one of those Metanorma project, and I will tell you that not everyone has that experience. Even I didn't have any experience. I used to think, even while being a part of Metanoma project, I was thinking that I know so less, because I don't have a tech writing background as such. So I was thinking I don't know much. But when you start working with these organizations, the best part is that you learn so much and unlearn a lot as well. So there are a lot of myths that exist. So you just start unlearning those things and learn from the professionals who have been a part of these organizations for a long time. So this is one of the good things. And as Vanshika also quoted, that don't start with bigger projects suddenly. And I would also suggest that just be a volunteer to some project. Just observe, maybe not contribute, but just observe for first few days or months, and then you can start contributing. So yeah, that's my take on it.
Very interesting to listen to your stories. Coming back to Vanshika's point about contributing to bigger projects as a beginner and not being able to get your pull requests merged. So I want to know, like, is open source all about getting your pull requests merged?
Yeah, I don't think so. It's about getting a pull requests merge. Obviously, it's a good thing, because getting your GitHub green wall is a good thing. You feel very accomplished after that. But it's not very easy to get your PRs merged, because when you just start with it, even you don't have a lot of experience of what you are doing, what you are actually contributing. So if there are literally good flaws, if you are actually solving an issue that they already have, and if you're solving good gaps in the documentation, maybe, so there are chances that your PR might get merged. But you should keep trying, because once it gets failed and it does not get merged, you will obviously be like, I am not good at it. But it's just that you should keep trying, and that's how it goes forward.
Yeah. I mean, what Ankita said is definitely true. And, your PR getting merged is just definitely not one thing, right? Open source is super, super huge. There is collaboration possibility, there's contribution, communication, so many different parts of part of this open source itself. And I would say that if you actually want to, you have a big open source project in your eyes, right? Then you can probably go for a different sort of thing to understand it much more deeply than what it is about, how you can contribute in a much better way. Most of the projects, I think, they have their own onboarding managers, or there's like onboarding community which is set up for the beginners. So you can probably talk to them and get to know that what are these certain things that you can take care of when you're starting contribution in that project. And apart from that, I think even people had this contribution in the UI UX side, designing, making banners for the community, doing anything and everything within open source when you're beginning, and then picking the things that you are good at. Because when you start exploring these things right in the early stage, then you would be only able to pick those key things right that you have to go ahead with that in the further process. Yeah.
So, like, most of the audience of my podcast is developers and like coders. So I want to know, like, what are the opportunities of non-code contributions in open source for developers?
So there was recently a tweet that I had, where I had mentioned that there is a new term that is evolving, which is developers as bloggers, also known as DAB. So I just created that term, and I realized that I can see, because Dev Library, the product that I've been building, even with that product, we are seeing so many developers who are not just creating open source projects, but are writing a lot as well. So I feel that content is somewhere the most important thing nowadays, be it tech writing, be it content writing, be it copywriting, any sorts of writing. And I feel glad that I'm a part of it. So when you're talking about the non-coding part of the developer market, I say that there is a lot of scope in writing. And just I have seen projects getting rejected. So with dev library, what happens that not every submission that external developers do goes on the site. We have a curation process in line, and projects actually get rejected, and we have like 49% rejection rate, out of which I can say the biggest reason is incomplete readmes, or the readme just does not convey what the project is doing. And this makes me so overwhelmed, because still that we are creating good projects, but we are not explaining those projects well. So I guess tech writing is the major and the biggest part of open source contributions. And developers who are just building, or just starting, they are just started building, I can see so many of them writing tech articles on different platforms like Hashnode, dev.to, or even on publications on Medium. They are writing so much. So I believe for me, I have that bias as well, but for me, it will always be writing that, just have those contributions. Yeah.
I think technical writing is definitely one thing that people are making it part of their portfolio, which is really good practice. And I think that's a good way of also practicing documentation around the project. So if someone else is like, you're making your own project for the portfolio purpose, right? You can write a good documentation of how you integrated certain open source projects or how you integrated languages in that. So that's a very good practice. Apart from that, I think there's developer relations and developer advocacy roles that are being involved as part of developer marketing, and that's like a bit more diverse role. So that is like you can know about the open source projects and technologies, and then eventually can contribute into multiple ways. So if someone is like really good into a video aspect of things, then they might be doing the live coding sessions and help out the people, right? Or probably help them out with the testing part. So that's a very broad spectrum that is kind of coming up within developer marketing, because eventually every open source project needs a community, and to handle that, developer relations and developer advocates are really important. And even community manager is one such role under that same umbrella. So that's my take.
I'm glad that you brought up communities, Vanshika. So my next question is for you only. Like, as a beginner, how to get involved in a community and how to not feel out of place. Just starting off.
Okay. So first of all, very one I would say it's like a caution that what happens at the beginning when you listen about communities, technical communities, you're like, okay, I'm going to go into GTSC, I'm going to go into Azure, like big communities, which is fine. But then everyone tries to get into every community that exists, the big communities. So be very picky about them. That's what I would say in the first process. So if you are learning certain technology, for example, let's say Next.js, okay, or let's say Kubernetes, right? So pick a community around that particular spectrum and then go into it. But like have 2-3 communities only as part of your daily routine. Because if you go into 20 of them, you will feel that you are not contributing to it. Eventually, you will not have that takeaways from that community. So the idea is to make sure that your time is very valuable. So you put it into the right places, divide it properly, and also get to know about the community much more deeply. So when you go and like most of the communities are either are Discord or on Slack, but I think Discord is most used one. So when you go there, they have these documentation, certain blog posts, which is part of the welcoming of the community, which I would definitely say that please go through them, because it would help you to get better at where you are going, and you would probably understand that okay, maybe someone recommended you a certain community, you went in there and you feel that okay, this is not the place you want to be. You can move on from that, right? There's no point of being part of every community and not contributing to even one. So choose top 3, make them like put it into a priority list, and then see where you can start contributing. Try to speak to the people, and I feel that once you are part of the community and you start understanding what it is doing, what it is about, what are the things you can help with, then eventually the newcomers that come in, you will start communicating with them, because that's the way people will think that you are outspoken, you're open to them, you're open to the communication. And when that thing comes out in the community, right, the people who are part of those projects, or say who are handling the community, they actually see that what effort you're putting, and that is how you can get appreciated. That is how you can see that where you can evolve. And if you go and ask them that hey, I would like to contribute in a certain manner, they would definitely help you out, because they have seen you have sticked to the community folks, and you have some certain vision in your head. So that is what I would recommend.
Yeah, I mean, I've been leading communities for 4 years now. And there was this community called Community Folks, which was a community of community managers in India. So when I started volunteering for them, I remember I started connecting one on one with them. I think all the opportunities I've gotten over these years is because of that connection that I had built. And as Vanchika said, like amazing points, Vanchika. I just want to add small tiny thing. This just that if you want to initially join a community, maybe join by some references. So if you, as Vanchika said, if you're learning a new technology or not, just you want to be a part of any product community or any technology community, make sure that you join by some reference, because someone who's already a part of that community will explain it to you better, that if it is worth joining this community or not, because your energy will be consumed definitely. and post that your one-on-one collaborations matter a lot. I remember some of the folks, you actually remember their names because of that one-on-one collaboration, or when they start commenting on the posts, you somehow keep remembering those names, and those get just stuck with you, and that helps you. That is kind of a networking, right? It just helps you in your other opportunities as well, because now I will remember that name, that Vanshika once talked about this. Now I remember that name, and once I get some opportunity which I want to pass it on, I will suddenly remember. I will just do it with, I'll forward Vanshika's name. So this is what one-on-one collaborations and active participation does, that you remember names. So that is extremely important.
My next question is for you, Ankita. For us developers, how can we better ourselves in like writing blogs, writing documentations, writing readmes for the projects?
Yeah, I think apart from taking courses or anything, I haven't taken any. So I just realized that somehow building and writing more and more over time makes your writing better anyway. The second is, if you want to be extremely good with tech writing, I've seen this, that you have to be extremely good with language and grammar, uh, which oppositely is not very, with content writing it's not that necessary, but with tech writing it's like you have to be very specific. And I've taken so many sessions on tech writings where I give this resource of, there is a course by Google itself, which is Google's tech writing course 1 and 2. I suggest everyone to take that course. And the second is Dozuki's tech writing handbook. I just love these two resources. If anyone wants to start with tech writing, just go through these two resources and you're set. Once, if you want to edit your articles, these two resources are the best resources. And one of the books that I recommend is The Elements of Style. Uh, that's a very small, tiny book, but it is always next to my desk, because whenever I want to edit any of my blogs, I just go through that book once, and I just refer that, if I have made any mistake or not. The next thing I would say is, always when you're starting with a blog, always divide your blog into sections. I don't know how can I stress on this. It's extremely important. Even before starting a blog, just write the headings of the blog, just divide it into sections, that this is a tech writing blog about this strategy, and this is how I'm going to divide it. So what is this, how is this done, what is the conclusion, how I'm going to start with it. So once you divide your blog into sections, it's easier for you to start putting content into it. So this is my go-to strategy that I follow for writing tech blogs, and also these resources are extremely important. So I'm not going to overwhelm the audience as well, but this is what I do.
So before wrapping off, can we just play my speed test once? All right, Ankita, Vanshika, thanks for joining us. Had a lovely time chatting with you. Any closing notes you want to share with the community?
First of all, thank you so much, Sanskar, for having us. It was a great evening and recording this podcast with you. And I think only one thing that I would say is that in the when you begin a certain journey, right, you always feel confused, you always feel a lot of challenges, and do not step back because you feel those things. Keep going ahead. If it takes time to explore things, if it takes time, to figure out things and what are the best things that would work out for you, that's completely fine. Everyone has been there. I myself has been there. I think probably Ankita would have certain things in where we were trying to figure out that what was the best thing, or what was the thing that we could probably go ahead in our lives, and that's fine to feel confused, to feel challenged. So, but just don't quit. That's one thing, because when you quit in the middle of process, all the steps that you have taken to come to that point, that goes back, right? So just don't do that.
For me, first of all, thank you, Sanskar. Um, I have seen recently I saw your podcast guest list, and I'm like, wow, did I just make it here? So thank you so much. And one just advice to the community people is, don't hesitate to reach out. I have, I can't stress on this enough. Just do that cold email, that cold DM, or just reach out to us, or reach out to anyone who has been in your guest list, Sanskar. I would say all of them are super welcoming. I have been to people who are blue ticks on Twitter with huge following, and they were super generous in replying with whatever questions you have. But I just want to also mention that just don't type hey. please mention your
Yep.
entire query and why you're reaching out. That's an art in itself, but make sure to reach out because you always have an answer right there out somewhere. So, yeah.